All right, so today we are going on a bit of a journey that starts, believe it or not, with ancient myths and ends up with that supercomputer you've got right in your pocket. We're talking about the surprisingly long, winding history of artificial intelligence.
I mean, it kind of feels like AI just exploded onto the scene overnight, doesn't it? One minute we're watching sci-fi movies, and the next our phones are finishing our sentences for us. But the journey from a far-out dream to a tool that can actually write, create, and reason, well, that's a long and pretty fascinating story. So let's unpack how it all happened.
Believe it or not, this whole idea of creating intelligent machines, it's thousands of years old. Seriously, long before we had a single line of code, ancient myths were packed with stories about artificial beings. Statues that could move and speak on their own. It just goes to show you, we've always been fascinated with the idea of creating something intelligent in our own image.
Okay, so this is where things get real. This is the moment the whole idea shifts from myth into actual science. In 1950, the brilliant mathematician Alan Turing came along and proposed what we now call the Turing test. He wasn't just dreaming anymore. He was asking a scientific question. How can we actually tell if a machine is intelligent? And that one question, right there, basically lit the fuse for this entire field.
So, that big question Turing asked, it led directly to what we consider the official birthday of AI. Just 6 years later, in 1956, a group of scientists got together at Dartmouth College for a workshop. And it was there that the term artificial intelligence was officially born. It gave the field a name, it brought the community together, and it unleashed this huge wave of optimism.
The easiest way to think about this whole history is to break it down into 4 distinct seasons. It all kicked off with the exciting birth back in the 50s and 60s. But that was followed by a long, cold AI winter, when everything just stalled. Then, in the 2000s, things started to thaw thanks to a totally new approach, which led us straight into the massive bloom we're all living through today. So, that's our roadmap.
And during that initial birth phase, oh man, the excitement was just off the charts. Scientists were building these programs that could play checkers and solve simple logic puzzles. And when a computer beat a human at a game like chess, people thought, whoa, we've pretty much cracked it. Seriously, the consensus was that truly human-level AI was maybe just a decade or two away. But they were about to hit a very, very big wall. And that wall was the AI winter. After all that initial hype, progress just slowed to a crawl. The huge promises didn't really happen. The funding started to dry up, and this general sense of disappointment just settled over the entire research community. The dream really felt like it was freezing over.
So why? Why did this winter even happen? Well, the ambition was there for sure, but the technology just wasn't. For one, computers were painfully slow and their memory was tiny, like comically small by today's standards. Plus, there just wasn't enough data in the world for them to learn from. But the biggest reason? Researchers started to realize that real-world problems, things that need common sense or understanding a joke, were just infinitely more complicated than a game of chess with its nice, neat rules.
But after decades of quiet work in the background, the thaw finally began. And this wasn't just a small step forward. It was a total change in how we thought about AI, powered by faster computers and, of course, the explosion of data from the internet. This new era had a new name: machine learning.
Okay, this right here is the fundamental shift in thinking. The old way of doing AI involved a programmer trying to sit down and write a rule for every single possible thing that could happen, which is, well, it's impossible. Machine learning flipped that completely upside down. Instead of giving the machine rules, you give it tons of data and just let it figure out the patterns for itself. This was a total game changer.
Let's make that really concrete. So imagine you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a cat. The old way would be to write code like, if it has pointy ears and whiskers and a long tail, then it's a cat. But what if the cat is hiding its ears? What if it's a max cat with no tail? See the problem? Machine learning just says, forget the rules. Here are 10,000 pictures of cats, you figure it out. And by looking at all that data, it learns the pattern of catness way better than any rule a human could ever write.
You actually see this in action every single day. Your email's spam filter, that is a perfect, everyday example of machine learning. Nobody programmed it with a giant list of every possible spammy word. It just learned to spot junk mail by being shown millions and millions of examples of what is spam and what isn't. It learned from experience, just like we do.
And that brings us to the final and most explosive phase of our timeline, the bloom. If machine learning was the thaw that ended the winter, Then deep learning was the sun coming out and making everything grow like crazy. It's basically a supercharged version of machine learning that powers pretty much all the amazing AI you see today.
So what is it? At its core, deep learning uses something called artificial neural networks. Now, without getting too technical, just think of them as complex systems with many, many layers of algorithms that are loosely inspired by how the neurons in our own brains are connected. Each layer learns to spot a different feature. So one layer might see simple lines, the next might see shapes, and the next might see a face, allowing the machine to understand incredibly complex and abstract patterns in data.
And the results of this breakthrough are just everywhere. This isn't some abstract thing in a lab. It's the brain inside Siri and Alexa that actually understands what you're saying. It's the magic that lets your phone unlock just by looking at your face. It's the core technology behind the vision systems in self-driving cars. And it's even helping doctors diagnose diseases from medical scans with superhuman accuracy. It's all deep learning. Which brings us right up to now. We've come all the way from that ancient dream, through the birth, the long winter, the deep learning bloom, and we've landed in what everyone is now calling the generative age.
Yeah, this is the AI you've been hearing about nonstop. Tools like ChatGPT and DALL-E, they represent another massive leap forward. They don't just analyze or recognize information, they generate brand new stuff. That's why it's called generative AI. They can write an essay for you, create a photorealistic image from a crazy description, or even write actual computer code. All of that history has led us to this incredible moment.
And its impact is just spreading like wildfire. This isn't just a tech industry story anymore, not by a long shot. From discovering new drugs in healthcare and detecting fraud in finance, to creating personalized tutors in education and revolutionary special effects in entertainment, AI is fundamentally starting to reshape how we all work and create.
So I guess the big takeaway here is this. The AI revolution might feel sudden, but it's really been a long, slow marathon, full of incredible breakthroughs, but also a lot of frustrating setbacks. It's a journey from a philosophical, ancient dream to a very real, very powerful tool that is now, literally, in our hands.
And all of that leaves us with a final and, frankly, massive question. For over 70 years, the defining challenge of AI was a technical one. Can we make machines think? But we're now rapidly entering an era where the most important question isn't technical at all, it's ethical. As these machines get more and more powerful, how should they think? What are the rules we need to build for them? And that is the challenge that's going to define the entire next chapter of this incredible story.